Have you ever noticed how small gestures can hold the weight of ancient mysteries? How something as simple as rubbing a bit of cinnamon between your palms can awaken a whisper from deep within the soul? It sounds almost too simple to be real, too earthly to be sacred. And yet many of the most profound spiritual truths are hidden in acts so humble that we often overlook them. Edgar Cayce, the man they once called the sleeping prophet, understood this better than most. He believed that the divine often speaks not through thunder or visions, but through the quiet rhythm of our daily rituals, the things we touch, the breath we take, the way we greet the morning light. Cayce taught that true prosperity was not a matter of luck or mere effort, but the natural result of inner harmony. He spoke of vibration, energy, and the power of intention long before those words became popular in the language of self-development. To him, abundance was a state of consciousness, a resonance between one's spiritual frequency and the generous pulse of the universe. When you rub cinnamon on your hands for 7 mornings, you are not just performing a superstition. You are invoking a pattern, a symbolic act that trains the body and the mind to remember that life responds to the energy we offer it. Why cinnamon? Because it is warmth made manifest. It carries the essence of fire, gentle, comforting, but transformative. In ancient temples, priests burned cinnamon to awaken the senses of the gods, to remind them of humanity's prayers. Its scent lingers like a bridge between worlds, earthy yet celestial. When you hold that spice in your hands, you are literally holding the memory of sunlight condensed in bark. Cayce saw the world as a web of correspondences. Everything physical mirrors something spiritual. Thus, the spice that kindles the taste and stirs the blood is also the one that stirs the energy of attraction, the magnetism of prosperity. Each morning you perform this ritual, you are not begging for wealth to appear. You are reprogramming your vibration, one gentle act at a time. The human mind is like fertile soil. It receives the seed of every repeated thought and gesture. Rub cinnamon into your palms while thinking of gratitude, and your body becomes an altar. The warmth that rises in your hands is not just from friction, but from the alignment of your intention with the living field around you. For 7 days you are planting the same message into the ether. I am open. I am ready. I remember that abundance is my natural state. That is the true meaning hidden beneath Cayce's simplicity. There is something profoundly human in the idea that prosperity begins in the hands. These are the instruments of giving and receiving, of shaping and offering. They are how we touch the world. Cayce believed that energy flows most freely through what is blessed by consciousness. The act of anointing the hands, whether with oil, prayer, or spice, is as old as civilization itself. In it lies a quiet power, to remind us that everything we touch bears the imprint of our vibration. To cleanse the hands is to cleanse the gateway through which manifestation enters the world. 7 mornings. 7, the number of spiritual completion, the cycle that mirrors creation itself. Cayce often spoke of sevens, the 7 chakras, the 7 creative forces, the 7 days of Genesis, as if each one echoed a sacred geometry of renewal. When you commit to this rhythm, you align yourself with that same geometry. The first morning is intention, the second, belief, the third, surrender, the fourth, patience, the fifth, trust, the sixth, gratitude, and the 7th, realization. By the time your 7th sunrise arrives, you have already become what you sought, a vessel of receptive energy, tuned to the quiet abundance that moves through all things. And perhaps that is why rituals like this endure, even when the world dismisses them as quaint. Because the soul does not need proof, it needs remembrance. It longs for acts that speak its language, the language of symbol, scent, repetition, and quiet devotion. The cinnamon ritual, in truth, is not about summoning money. It is about awakening worth. It teaches the mind to see life not as a series of transactions, but as a flowing current of giving and receiving. Prosperity then becomes a relationship, not a possession. And when that realization dawns, every morning feels like the first, fresh, sacred, full of gentle power waiting in your open palms. But there is something deeper still, something that Cayce hinted at, but rarely explained directly. He believed that every physical act of alignment opens a spiritual gate, the rubbing of cinnamon, the scent that rises like incense, the warmth spreading through the skin. These are not coincidences. They are signals to the subconscious, the silent architect of reality. While the conscious mind dreams and desires, it is the subconscious that builds the bridge between the invisible and the visible. Rituals like this one are, in truth, instructions written in a language that the subconscious understands. Repetition, symbol, sensation. Each morning when you anoint your palms, you are whispering to that inner architect, build with faith, not with fear. Cayce's readings often return to this principle. Thought is creative. Every vibration of thought attracts its likeness. But he also warned that desire without alignment leads to emptiness. We cannot summon abundance while vibrating scarcity. We cannot invoke love while radiating fear. The cinnamon ritual works not because the spice is magical, but because it teaches coherence. It unites thought, body, and spirit in a single act of mindfulness. When your mind thinks of prosperity, your hands feel warmth, and your heart opens in gratitude. All three forces begin to vibrate in unison. That is when energy becomes form. Imagine for a moment that your life is a river. Most of the time it flows according to old patterns, channels carved by past experiences, beliefs, and expectations. You may try to change its course by force, but the water always returns to its habitual path. A ritual like this one does not dam the river. It subtly redirects it. Each repetition cuts a new groove in the mind, guiding the current toward harmony. After 7 mornings, something imperceptible begins to shift, not outside you but within. The river starts to remember that it was never meant to be confined. Abundance, Cayce would say, is not something you earn. It is what flows naturally when you stop resisting your own source. Perhaps this is why he so often spoke of attunement. To attune is to bring yourself into harmony with the frequency of divine order. It is not an act of doing, but of becoming. When you rub the cinnamon and breathe deeply, you are not commanding the universe to respond. You are tuning yourself to its existing generosity. Like a musician tuning an instrument before a sacred concert, you are ensuring that your inner strings are resonant, clear, and receptive. And once that harmony is established, life begins to play through you with effortless grace. Opportunities that once seemed distant begin to drift toward you, as if recognizing a familiar melody. Still, there is a subtle warning hidden in Cayce's teachings. He reminded his followers that prosperity cannot flourish in a heart hardened by greed or resentment. To hold wealth in your hands, your palms must first learn to open. Many people perform rituals for abundance while still clutching to fear. Fear of losing, fear of lack, fear of unworthiness. But a closed hand cannot receive, just as a clenched mind cannot perceive. That is why the ritual begins with the act of rubbing, friction transforming into warmth, tension dissolving into openness. It is the soul's way of practicing release, of teaching itself that to receive is to let go. Some may wonder, does the universe truly notice such a small act? Cayce would smile at the question. He would say, the universe notices everything that is done with intention, because intention is the signature of consciousness. It is what differentiates a habit from a prayer. The cinnamon ritual is powerful not because of the spice, but because of the attention it gathers. Each morning you pause, you breathe, you feel. For those few moments, you step outside the noise of the world and re-enter the sacred rhythm of being. And in that stillness, the divine recognizes you, not as a beggar asking for favor, but as a co-creator remembering their inheritance. If we look deeper, we might see that Cayce's so-called hidden teachings were never meant to be secrets at all. They were veiled only by our impatience, by our desire for quick miracles instead of inner transformation. He often said that spiritual laws are simple, but not easy, because they require consistency, humility, and faith in what cannot yet be seen. The cinnamon ritual in this light is not a shortcut to wealth. It is a daily conversation with the soul. It asks, can you trust the unseen long enough for it to take shape? Can you allow gratitude to precede evidence? Can you believe that the scent rising from your palms is already the fragrance of a life blooming into fullness? There comes a moment, usually around the middle of the 7 days, when something subtle begins to stir within. It's not dramatic, not a sudden wind of fortune sweeping through your life. It's quieter than that, like a soft hum beneath your awareness. You begin to feel lighter, more present, more attuned to small blessings. A stranger's smile seems to linger, the sunlight feels warmer on your skin, a problem that once felt heavy begins to unravel on its own. This is the point where ritual becomes relationship. The cinnamon is no longer just spice, and the gesture no longer mere movement. They become a conversation between your human self and your higher self, between what you can see and what quietly moves beneath the surface of all things. Edgar Cayce often said that every act of spirit must first express itself through matter. Spirit is the life, mind is the builder, and the physical is the result, he would say. This simple formula holds profound truth. The cinnamon ritual, then, is a physical mirror of a spiritual law. The warmth you feel in your hands is the life force awakening. The thoughts of gratitude that accompany it are the builders shaping its flow. And the results, the opportunities, insights, synchronicities, are the natural fruit of alignment. When the inner builder and the outer vessel work in harmony, reality itself begins to soften and reshape around that vibration. To live with this awareness is to understand that prosperity has never been about accumulation, but circulation. Cayce's philosophy was never one of hoarding, but of flow. He taught that what stagnates decays, whether it's water, energy, or wealth. Prosperity is a river that moves through open hearts. When we withhold, we dam the current. When we share, it grows stronger. Each time you rub cinnamon on your palms, imagine not just drawing abundance toward yourself, but preparing your hands to pass it forward. The warmth is not meant to end with you. It's meant to move through you, like sunlight traveling from one window to the next. This perspective changes everything. Suddenly, wealth ceases to be something we chase and becomes something we express. You begin to see that the universe rewards coherence, not desperation. That generosity is not the result of abundance, but its cause. Cayce often said that to bless others is to multiply your own blessings, because energy obeys the laws of return. The cinnamon ritual therefore becomes a meditation on generosity, an embodied prayer that says, "May my hands be instruments of giving, not grasping." And when you live this way, you notice that life itself seems eager to meet you halfway, offering chances, people, and ideas that match the kindness of your vibration. It's important to remember, too, that every ritual is a mirror of your belief. If you approach it with doubt, it reflects doubt. If you approach it with reverence, it reflects reverence. The power has never been in the spice, the chant, or the motion. It has always been in the meaning. Cayce's genius was to remind us that faith is not something we feel only when miracles occur. Faith is the soil from which miracles grow. When your palms are warm with cinnamon, that warmth is faith made tangible. It's your reminder that belief must be felt, not just spoken. The body becomes the anchor of the unseen, grounding the energy of intention into the physical plane. Sometimes, on the later mornings of the practice, resistance appears. The mind begins to question, is this really working? Am I just playing pretend? That is the ego's last attempt to reclaim control, to drag the infinite back into the measurable. But if you stay with the ritual, if you breathe through the doubt, you begin to notice something extraordinary. The act itself becomes its own reward. The scent, the warmth, the silence of the moment. They soothe the heart in ways that no external success ever could. You realize that prosperity was never waiting at the end of the 7 days. It was unfolding in each moment of presence. You were not performing magic. You were remembering peace. And that peace is the real treasure Cayce wished for all souls to discover. When the ritual ends, you carry that frequency into everything you touch, your work, your conversations, your thoughts. The hands that once sought to attract now move to create. You begin to notice that prosperity is not an event but a posture, a way of standing in the world with trust. The cinnamon, now just a spice again, sits quietly in your kitchen, but something in you has changed. You no longer look at it as an external charm, but as a teacher, a reminder that sacredness hides in the simplest of gestures, waiting for us to remember that the divine is never far, only forgotten. When the 7th morning arrives, there is a stillness that feels different. The same sunlight touches your hands, the same cinnamon warms your palms, but something unseen has ripened. You no longer perform the ritual as a seeker. It has become an expression of remembrance. You remember that abundance was never missing, only unrecognized. You remember that your worth was never measured by possession but by presence. The fragrance that rises now is not just from the spice, it's from the quiet fire of understanding that burns inside you. You realize that Cayce's so-called secret was never about manifesting things. It was about awakening the vibration of divine cooperation within the soul. In that moment, the hands that once reached outward begin to rest gently over the heart. The ritual turns inward. The warmth that once symbolized external wealth now reveals itself as inner radiance, the energy of gratitude itself. Prosperity, you see, is not something that visits you. It is something that grows within you like light expanding from a hidden flame. When you feel full inside, the world around you begins to mirror that fullness. Cayce spoke of this as the law of correspondence. The outer world is but a reflection of the inner state. To change what you experience, you must first sanctify the space within. And that is exactly what these 7 mornings have done, little by little, friction turning to warmth, warmth turning to awareness, awareness turning to peace. From this place, you begin to move through the world differently. You speak with a softer voice. You listen more deeply. You give without calculating return. You begin to notice that life itself begins to respond. Doors open easily. People are kind. Synchronicities align. Not because the universe suddenly changed, but because you did. You started resonating with a higher rhythm, the rhythm of trust. The ritual taught you the art of surrender disguised as action. The cinnamon was the doorway. Gratitude was the key. You stepped through it every morning without realizing you were crossing a threshold into a more luminous way of being. And perhaps that is why every true spiritual practice, no matter how simple, carries the same silent instruction. Slow down. Listen. Feel. The modern world races toward results, but the soul evolves through rhythm. Cayce often said that we find God not in motion, but in stillness. The cinnamon ritual, when practiced with awareness, becomes an act of stillness in motion, a moving prayer. Each circular movement of your hands is a reminder that life is not a straight line to achievement, but a spiral of awakening. You return to the same place again and again, but each time you arrive with deeper understanding. The 7th day, then, is not the end. It is the beginning of a more conscious cycle. From here, you no longer need the ritual, yet you may find yourself returning to it, not out of need but out of love, because now you understand that it was never about invoking wealth. It was about invoking wholeness. The cinnamon on your hands is a symbol of the sacred power hidden in every ordinary act. Washing dishes, writing an email, planting a seed, all of it can be an altar if done with presence. You realize that spirituality was never meant to be separate from life. Cayce's message echoes softly in your mind. The Spirit of God moves through all things. The divine does not wait in temples or texts. It moves through your fingertips, through every act that carries awareness. As you reflect on the 7 days, a deep gratitude rises. You feel thankful not only for what you may receive, but for the reminder of what you already are. A vessel of divine energy, a point of light in the infinite fabric of being. The abundance you sought was never a reward for faith. It was faith itself. It was the courage to trust that even the simplest ritual could open a doorway to the sacred. You remember that Cayce's life, filled with humble service, was itself a demonstration of prosperity, a life overflowing with purpose, connection, and healing. To live in harmony with that truth is to live prosperously, no matter what the bank account says. And so when you open your palms one last time and let the cinnamon dust fall away, it feels less like an ending and more like a continuation. The scent lingers faintly in the air like a promise kept. You carry that fragrance with you, not on your skin but in your spirit. Wherever you go, you bring the quiet assurance that abundance is not something to chase, but something to embody. The world may continue rushing by, chasing after more, but you will walk differently, rooted, aware, gently radiant, and perhaps someone will notice your calm, your quiet confidence, and ask what changed. And you might simply smile and say, I remembered that my hands were never empty.